So hello everybody and welcome to another CPN presentation. This is a follow-up session to the Great Year Cycle called the Zodiacs and the Universal Celestial Calendar, and it is hosted by our natural cycle superhero Litmus A. Freeman, who is here to tell us everything we need to know. So enjoy, and over to you, Litmus.
Thank you very much, Robito. Right, I'm going to share my screen. So yeah, thanks all for coming tonight, guys and gals, and in the north and the south. So I just thought I'd tell you a bit about me. So this will only take about 3 hours, this bit. And then, no, I'm joking, obviously. I'm just going to put some slides on here. So if people are watching back and they want to know anything about my past, history, whatever, they can pause it. So I'm not going to go through all this, but basically I did 25 years in the Matrix. So I was in the corporate world and I escaped when I was 40. If you want to read what I did all in that world, you can pause it and have a look at that. It's working now, the arrows, right. But when I quit my job, I'm coming up to my 20th anniversary, actually, of quitting my job in a few days' time, which is cool. I set up a little music business and did all that music stuff. And in 2008, I started Project Freeman, which was to explore the free man on the land thing and to look at how I could use it to basically protest, because protesting is kind of a waste of time and plays into the hands of the system. So I was looking at how some of this free man stuff that I'd heard about might be used to start paying tax and things like that. And I did all that. So that was kind of my first project. And then that was pretty successful. And I started presenting it at festivals and stuff. For about 5 years, I was doing festivals in Britain. But in 2010, I went on the road. I lived in my van on the road for 10 years. I was going back to do presentations and festivals. I made a calendar, which we're going to talk about. I set up a trust for traveling creative people called the Troubadour Community Trust. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, I kind of started settling down a bit again on the west coast of Portugal, which is where I am now. And I got a band and stuff. So yeah, if you want to look at that in a bit more detail, just pause it. These are my passions: music, creating, nature, symbolism, history, communication, health, and I love change. And mostly I love how and why things work, especially the universe. So I've written a lot of songs and poems, which I'm gradually putting on my website and releasing and recording and stuff. But yeah, just love creativity. Okay, and these are some of my websites, which you can get if you go to litmusafreeman.net. They're all on there, and they've all got their own domains as well. And so we come to Project Freeman, which I ended up calling the journey home. Because it grew from just being a free man on the land thing into much more holistic thing, including, mental freedom and spirituality as well. So Project Freeman's in 3 parts. Part 1, free the body. Part 2, free the mind. And part 3, free the spirit. So part 1 is just getting yourself physically free out of the matrix as much as possible, using free man strategy. And then once you're out of that, you've got time to be, and then you can start freeing your mind more and see what comes to you. And I started getting kind of what I call messages from home, which are like downloads from the universe, basically. And I was walking around the French mountains talking to God and stuff like that, like I was on a spiritual journey to find myself, that kind of thing. So yeah, if you haven't done that, I highly recommend it. Yeah, and then the more you free your mind and connect with your higher self, the more you free your spirit. And then you find it's kind of like a lemniscate that goes round and round, that loop. You free your body, free your mind, free your spirit, to free your mind, to free your body, to free your mind, to free your spirit, and so on. And it never ends, and you just go up in spirals, and sometimes you fall back down a bit, but that's okay as long as it keeps going up, So yeah, so we're going to look at part 3, Free the Spirit, which is also subtitled All is One. And if you want to go to projectfreeman.com, you can look at all these in more detail. So all is one and one is all. So I call this the reuniting of science and spirituality. And I came up with this little pun because I love puns. So if you do that, you get a sensual experience. Haha. Okay, and that's part of the pandemic, which is another story, but kept me going through the pandemic. Okay, and then we're going to look at a part of part 3, because each of these parts is also in 3 parts, so there's 9 parts in all. So we're going to look at phase 7 today, astronomology, which is the reuniting of astronomy and astrology, as it says there. And that's the little logo I came up with for it, which is basically an A for astronomy and an A for astrology, inverted to make a 6-pointed star of creation, sacred masculine, sacred feminine. That was the idea anyway. Hope that comes across. I didn't pay a marketing agency millions for that logo. I just, did it myself in my van. So hence the sort of Heath Robinson nature of it, I guess. So what are we on about here? Astronomy, because I don't know if you know, but astrology and astronomy both used to be one thing called astrology. But then in the sort of age of reason, in the after the Renaissance, they kind of separated them. And astronomy became very left brain, all about physics and physical energy and things you could measure, and very much 5 senses orientated. So taking data from the outside in. And astrology tended to retain all the more metaphysical and spiritual, what some people call wafty or airy-fairy stuff, and it also included more of the intangible stuff that you couldn't really measure and you couldn't have proof of, but you could just maybe feel it, intuitively. And it was more about the 6th sense, so the intuition from the inside out rather than the outside in. And much more right brain, in touch with the feminine and the higher self and more of the spiritual stuff. But it does include some of the stuff on the left as well. Okay. So basically when I'm looking at astrology, I also look at astronomy and vice versa, to try and bring it back together. Because otherwise you're kind of missing half of the picture if you only look at one or the other. And of course, the system's great at getting people arguing about which one's best, and all the astronomers slag off the astrologers, and the astrologers say all the astronomers are squares and left brain people, and all that kind of thing. We end up fighting, which is not what we want, of course, at all. So yeah, we want to look at both halves of the brain, the left brain with all the logic and the rules, the analytical stuff, but also the right brain to create more of the creativity, the chaos, the intuition. So marrying the masculine and the feminine together to get the full picture. Okay, and astrology is one of the Hermetic arts because it exhibits the Hermetic principles, which we're going to look at in a second. And the etymology of astrology literally just means a telling of the celestial bodies. So it includes stars and planets and constellations, all the things that move in the sky. So yes, and Hermetic art, and these are the sort of currently accepted 7 Hermetic principles. Only 3 of them actually come from documents attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, who gives the name Hermetic from the name Hermes. He was known as the god Thoth in Egypt, and Hermes in Greece, and he's basically Mercury in the Roman tradition. So the planet Mercury, basically, the wisdom energy of the solar system, is kind of personified in Hermes. So mentalism, correspondence, polarity, and gender are all things that Hermes did talk about, and the others about vibration and rhythm and cause and effect, they were kind of added in more in the 1900s through largely through a book called the Kabbalion, and they made them into these 7 principles. And I've been doing some work on this, and I'm going to add some more because I think there's more than 7. So, but that's another story, and I'm going to publish that at some point. Okay, so anything that exhibits these principles, we can consider a hermetic principle. So, sorry, an hermetic art. So that includes astrology and alchemy and magic with a K, and also things like tarot and hermetic Kabbalah, the tree of life and that kind of stuff. So they're all different ways of showing these principles of as above, so below, vibration and rhythm, and all the rest you can see there. All right, so astrology is a tool, and I've certainly found this to be true. It's a tool that can help us to know ourselves. I think Plato said, know thyself. It helps us to realize where things we got in common, but also to celebrate our differences and to be what I call ace. So to get acceptance, compassion, and empathy, and to ultimately to balance our lives. Now, when we're looking at astronomy and astrology and astronomology, we really need to remember this. So as we go through the rest of the slides, just bear this in mind. I came up with this little thing about using your iPod. So your iPods, pod stands for perspective, orientation, and direction. So when you're looking at, anything to do with movement in the sky and stuff, you really need to think about your perspective. Where am I looking from? So generally we're looking from Earth, unless we, been to a good party and picked up some entheogens. We also need to bear in mind the orientation, like which way am I facing? And the direction, so which way am I moving? And if you can pin all those 3 down, you won't get so confused, because some of this stuff can get very confusing because there's all sorts of terminology which has been mixed up through the years, especially through the Kali Yuga that we talked about last time. So yeah, bear this in mind as we go through. So if you get confused, just shout, because we'll be looking at things from different perspectives, okay? Okay, so the Zodiacs and the universal celestial calendar. Now the calendar's on the right and the Zodiac's on the left. So hopefully you can see they look, partly anyway, very similar. So what's this all about? And everything we're doing today is a wisdom workout from Project Freeman. So you just have to add experience. All right, so let's get into it. So we're going to look at how we can understand the astronomology of our natural cycles, and how this can be a practical use to aid knowing who we are, so self-realization, and how we can develop our consciousness, so ascend in consciousness, as we head through Dwapara Yuga towards, through the Bronze Age, towards the Silver Age and the Golden Age, as we looked at in the last session. So the agenda, we're going to have a quick recap about the cycles that we looked at last time. Then we're going to look at the 3 zodiacs. Yeah, there's not 1, there's actually 3. Then we're going to look at the zodiacs as a calendar and how we can use it practically to do the things that we said there. Okay, any questions so far about what we're going to cover? All good? Okay, so let's have a look at the cycles. Let's have a quick recap of the cycles. So we talked about 3 main cycles, natural cycles that we live in. The day, the year, and the great year. So if we think about the day, That's one anti-clockwise cycle of the Earth, which has been called terra firma, spinning on its axis, and it spins anti-clockwise. So this is a cycle between the Earth and the Sun, and it's a cycle of light and heat that increase and decrease over a approximately 24-hour period. And I say approximately because you may or may not know, but the day isn't quite exactly 24 hours. It's sometimes a few seconds less and sometimes a bit more, I think. So that's the day cycle. And the Earth actually, as it spins, it basically goes through the zodiac, and we're going to look at what the zodiac actually is, of course. But it goes through the zodiac every day as it spins, all 12 signs of the zodiac. And then if we think of this, the year cycle, that's an anti-clockwise cycle also of the Earth going around the Sun. So that's the Sun-Earth cycle. It's also a cycle of light and heat, and it takes 365.2422 days. And the 0.2422 is because it spins for an extra 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 48 seconds to complete its orbit. And that's why we have leap years. Okay. And then we also talked about the great year cycle. Now, this is a cycle between our solar system and the galaxy that we're in. So it's one anti-clockwise rotation of the galactic reference frame, all right? So basically, the galactic reference frame is what's called the sidereal zodiac, and we're going to look at what the hell that is in a little while. And that is outside our solar system, and that rotates anti-clockwise around our solar system and its reference frame, which is called the tropical zodiac. Okay, and the tropical zodiac is inside our solar system. So one's inside, one's outside. And for that whole rotation takes 24,000 years on average, and it's a cycle of consciousness rising and falling. So it's basically like, you can think of it as spiritual light increasing and decreasing. And then I've just mentioned the moon here, because the moon isn't a cycle like the other three. It's like an intermediate cycle between the day cycle and the year cycle. So it's a cycle between the Earth and the moon, and it's one anti-clockwise, again, orbit of the moon around the Earth. The orbit takes on average 27.3 days, but the phase cycle that we see with the new moon to full moon and back again takes 29.5 days. So this is a cycle of light, gravity, and water. And the thing to remember with the moon cycle is that lunar cycles do not fit into the solar year cycle. So you can't have a moon calendar to measure years. Moon calendars measure months, moon cycles, and solar calendars measure sun year cycles. But the two take 19 years to sync up with each other. So you can't use the moon for a yearly calendar. All right, so if we think of all four of those cycles, they all exhibit similar characteristics. So, for example, they ascend or grow from a low point to a high point. So if we think of the day, that would be midnight. If we think of the moon cycle, it would be a new moon. If we think of the year, that would be what we in the north call the winter solstice. And that would be the Capricorn solstice. And in the great year, it would be the Iron Age at the bottom in the Kali Yuga that we talked about last time, okay? Then they all pass through some balance point. So the balance point of the day would be sunrise or sunset. The balance point of the moon cycle would be when you can see half the moon in the sky. The balance point of the year would be one of the two equinoxes. And in the great year, it'd be somewhere in the Silver Age. But we don't know exactly where because we've lost a lot of records about that cycle. Okay, and then once they've grown from a low point, gone through a balance point, they get to a high point, and then they start to descend or decay from the highest point to a low point, towards the low point. So the highest point in the day would be midday, with the moon cycle would be the full moon, and with the year cycle, the summer solstice or the Cancer solstice. And in the great year, the golden age, when we're all third eye open, cosmically connected and one with God. Lovely. They can also all be divided naturally by astronomical conditions into 4 quarter sections. So the day divides into 4 6-hour periods on an equinox. The moon cycle divides into 4 quarter moons. The year obviously divides into 4 seasons, driven by the equinoxes and solstices. And the great year cycle divides into 4 yugas, or ages, from iron, bronze, silver, and gold. Okay, and then lastly, they all have a variable rate. So these cycles they're not fixed cycles that always go at the same rate. They speed up and slow down over the course of the cycle. All right, so that's something they've all got in common, and that's worth bearing in mind as we go on. All right, so that's a quick recap of what we were looking at on the flip chart and the whiteboard and that last time. All right, so let's have a look at these 3 zodiacs then. Just before we do that, any questions about those cycles we looked at? We all good? Okay, cool. Right, let's have a look at the 3 zodiacs. Now, zodiac, from the online etymology dictionary, means circle of little animals. So it's got the same root as zoo. Okay, so you can think of it as a zodiac. Now, obviously, not all of the characters in the zodiac are animals, unless you count us as animals, which we are partly, of course. So, I mean, Libra are some scales, and Aquarius is a man carrying water, the water bearer. But all the rest are some kind of creature, all right? And you can see the etymology there. All right, so yeah, there are actually 3 zodiacs. So let's have a look what they are. Now, this thing about there being 3 zodiacs, this is nothing new. This has always been known about through time immemorial. And this is just one article I found from 1976 about this, saying, you know, 3 zodiacs, are you confused? And I can assure you many people are confused, even astrologers. I have met astrologers who don't know about this, you know, and they don't know that there's a different zodiac to the tropical one and this kind of thing, believe it or not. So it can be confusing. And this is the little chart that article had, which was trying to show how they all interact. But we're going to go into a bit more depth on this. So what are the 3 zodiacs? So they're the tropical zodiac, the sidereal zodiac, and the constellational zodiac. Okay. So the tropical zodiac is made up of 12 equal 30-degree signs, and these are actually sun signs. They're not star signs, okay? When we call them star signs, that's a misnomer, as you'll see as we go. So this is about the Earth and the Sun relationship, and this is all happening inside our solar system. So there's no stars involved, okay? So it's nothing to do with constellations, all right? Apart from the names. So this is a fixed zodiac, and in astronomy, it's called the ecliptic grid, all right? Really lovely name there from the astronomers. And we're going to look at that in a minute. So what the tropical zodiac is the reference frame for everything inside our solar system from our perspective on Earth, okay? Right, now if we look at our solar system, as you can see, there are no stars there. The only star in our solar system is, of course, the sun. So when we're talking tropical zodiac, the only star is the sun, and then we're talking about all the planets and the asteroids and things within the solar system, not about stars, okay? Right now, the sidereal zodiac, that's also 12 equal 30-degree
Can I ask a
sections.
question, please?
Yes, you can, yeah.
I'm confused. You're saying there's no stars in our solar system. What is it I'm looking at then, or what is a star then? Maybe I don't even know what a star is.
Okay, so a star is like the sun. Our sun is a star, okay?
So what are those things in
And
the sky that I look at and call stars?
yeah, they're stars, but they're not in our solar system. They're outside the solar system. This is one of the main things to understand about how the zodiacs work, okay?
Okay. Okay.
So when our ancestors were looking at the sky, they noticed that all the stars would all move together, but some of them would move different ways and would go back and forth sometimes and move around. And they called those the wandering stars, whereas they called the other ones further away the fixed stars, okay? Now, the ones we're looking at here, these are the wandering stars. So planet comes from the Greek name for a wanderer, okay? So that when they noticed these things moving around, they realized that these were much closer to Earth and these were planets within our system, okay? So there are no stars in our solar system because it's a solar system. So it only has one star, the sun. And all the other things you can see are way, 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 way out in space. All right, miles and miles and miles, light years away. The nearest one is 4 light years away. All right, so it would take you 4 years at light speed to get there. So all the other things are inside the solar system. And this is what the tropical zodiac is based on. Okay. Does that answer your question, Helen?
It does, but I've always had questions about, when they say the stars that we're looking at are actually gone. These kind of things are a little bit beyond me.
When people say they might be gone, what they mean is that they're so far away that the light that we're looking at from them would have left there,
How
millions of
do
years
we know?
ago.
You see I'm going to shut up because that just confuses the shit out of me. Because I'm like, well, how do they know that they're gone?
Well, they don't know they're gone. I mean,
They're
no one's
there.
saying they're
And if
definitely
they've
gone, okay?
and if they've been there for thousands of years and our ancestors were able to chart it and mark them all down, and it takes a long time for them to go, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know of any that have gone while we've been here, because I mean, our sun is 4.5 billion years old. So, and
Okay.
it's gonna have a life for about another 4.5 billion years. So, our lifetime of, if we're lucky, 100 years is a drop in the ocean compared to that. Okay. So it's just to give you an idea of the scale. But the main thing to remember is when we talk tropical zodiac, we're talking about just our solar system, all right? And
Okay.
when we look at other zodiacs, we're talking about things far away out in space.
And a solar system is where each star is what constitutes a solar system. Whatever's around that star is what
Correct.
constitutes a solar. So when I'm
Yeah.
looking up at the sky, I'm seeing thousands upon trillions of billions of solar systems.
Yes. They think there's something like between 100 and 400 billion stars in our galaxy, the Milky Way.
And that's 400 billion solar systems with other planets.
Potentially, yeah, they could. A lot of them have been found to have planets, and we're finding more and more all the time. So the chances that there is other life out there is very high, basically. I mean, it would be a miracle if there
If it
wasn't
was.
any life, out there.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, no, that's a good question. Thank you. So yeah, the only star in the solar system is the sun, and all the rest are way, way, way away. Okay, good question. Right. So when we talk about the sidereal zodiac, and sidereal, that comes from the Latin name for star, okay, sider. So you can tell from that the sidereal zodiac is a zodiac of the stars, okay? So this is a solar system and galaxy relationship. So it's looking from the solar system out into our galaxy. So the sidereal zodiac is outside of our solar system, and it's basically the sky, the sections with the stars of the zodiac divided into 12 equal sections, all right? And that one whereas the tropical zodiac stays fixed from our perspective, the sidereal zodiac moves due to a thing called precession, and it moves really slowly. So, in an average lifetime, 71.3 years, it only moves 1 degree, right? So that's why it takes 24,000 years for it to move all the way around. So the sidereal zodiac is also a reference frame, but that's the reference frame of all the stars in the sky outside of our solar system. All right, so you can think of our solar system as kind of like a cell, and the nucleus of the cell would be the sun, and all the planets and stuff would be going around in the fluid of the cell, and then all the stars will be outside that cell. Okay, and then there's a third zodiac, which is the one that probably most people know about, which is the constellational zodiac. So that is the zodiac of the constellations. So, when people say, I'm a Libra or whatever, they think they're talking about their sun being in the constellation of Libra, but that's not generally the case. All right. But the sun signs of the tropical zodiac are named after those zodiac constellations. All right. So that's why it gets very confusing for people. And this is what we want to clear up tonight, so we all understand it. So the zodiac constellations are all different sizes. They're not all equal 30-degree sections. All right, so we're going to look at that as well. And the boundaries that determine their sizes, that's based on basically NASA drawing lines in the sky between the various constellations and saying, well, this star is in Libra and this star is in Virgo, or whatever. So it's very arbitrary. And the thing is with the stars of the constellations, they're not actually anywhere near each other. They just look as if they are from Earth, okay? So again, remember perspective, orientation, and direction. You have to know where you're looking from. All right, so just to hammer this point home, if you look at any astrology book, actually, can you see me while I'm presenting, or can you just see my screen? You can see me, right?
I think it depends on the settings of the person, but I can see you, yeah.
All right. So this
You're
book,
tiny, but we can see you. Yeah.
okay, you can see this book, Astrology for All, Alan Leo. So this was written in 1899, and it says in there, when he's talking about tropical signs versus sidereal, the zodiac constellations, he says the signs of the tropical zodiac should never be confused with the 12 constellations bearing the same names, okay? For though at certain periods of the world's evolution, the signs and the constellations coincide, and they will do so again because they move, okay? And sometimes they line up. It says that this is not now the case, all right? And that's on page 7. And if you look at any astrology book, I've got Complete Astrology by Alan Oken. I've got The Light of Egypt, volumes 1 and 2. I mean, you name whichever one you look at, every one of them will talk about this, the fact that the signs are not the constellations, all right? And we're gonna look at what they are. But just to get it really clear that we're not talking about, generally, when we're talking about astrology, we're not talking about the constellations, all right? We're just talking about sections of the sky that are named after the constellations. All right. So what the hell is this tropical zodiac? So that's pretty much the tropical zodiac there, that picture you can see, which is my calendar. Right, now this is all based on the fact that the Earth's axis is tilted at 23.4 degrees, all right? So hopefully we all know that. And because it's tilted, you get various circles drawn around the Earth. So you get the Arctic Circle, which is 23.4 degrees from the pole. And the Antarctic Circle is the same from the South Pole. And then you get the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, which are 23.4 degrees above and below the equator. And we're going to look at how that works, all right? So when we spin in, we're not spinning upright, we're spinning tilted over. So forgive me if you know all this already, but I'm just going to run through it so we're all on the same page, all right? So here's that tilted, there's the tilted Earth, and here it is in 4 places on its journey around the sun. So notice that it goes again anti-clockwise, all right? So let's start at the top there. So that's in the Gregorian calendar, that when the Earth is in that position, side on to the sun, around March the 21st, 20th, 22nd sometimes. The sun is going to be right over the equator, all right? And then as we go this way, hopefully you can see my mouse, then we go this way towards here. And when we get here, we're still spinning, we're always spinning the same way. But when we get here, we're spinning tilted still, but so now we're tilted towards the sun. So that's the summer solstice for us in the northern hemisphere and the winter solstice for you guys down under. All right, and if you want Gregorian dates for that, that's June the 21st-ish. All right, and on that day, the sun will be over the Tropic of Cancer. And that's why the Tropic of Cancer is there, because that's the highest point that the sun gets above the equator in the sky, okay? And then as we go around still more, we're still spinning the same way. And when we get here, we're opposite this one. So we're side on again. So we have another equinox, both on these 2 days that we get about 12 hours a day and 12 hours a night. And that's around September 23rd. And again, the sun will be over the equator on that day, but it'll be dropping south, whereas over here, it's on the equator and it's going north. So here, look, it's north of the equator. And then when we get round to here, now we're tilted away from the sun in the north. So now the sun's over the Tropic of Capricorn, which is 23.5 degrees below the equator. And that's the lowest point the sun goes in the sky. Okay, so that, as you can see, gives us 4 sections. And those 4 sections aren't just made up by people and given arbitrary names or points, you know, these are actual astronomical points because of the orientation of the Earth to the sun. All right. So if we do this, we can now see the 4 seasons. So when we're going from this equinox here to the summer solstice in the north, that's what we call spring. And when we're going from so this is the peak point of that cycle, like we were talking about, where it's got to the highest point of its cycle. And then it starts to come down again. And this is called summer. And then when we get to this equinox, we start autumn. And then we go autumn. And then when we get here, this is the start of winter. And then we have winter, and then it goes on again. So you get 5, you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. So those are kind of 5 special days in the year. Right now, you can see this in the old Celtic solar cross. So if you've ever seen one of these on the side of the road somewhere, this is what it represents, the sun and the earth at its 4 points around. So you get these 5 special days.
I've
Right,
got
so
a question, sorry. What is the special
Yeah.
day for number 1?
So number 1 would be the new year. So a special day to mark the fact that we're going to do another orbit around the sun, yeah?
Okay.
And then this one would be for the spring equinox. This would be for the summer solstice. And this would be for the autumn equinox, and this one for the winter solstice. Yeah. So that gives you 5 special days, 1 for the year, and 2 equinoxes and 2 solstices. Okay, so what someone in our ancestry way back in antiquity did was they divided this cycle up into 12 equal sections based on sacred geometry. So that's another workshop I do. but we basically, if you draw the seed of life and the flower of life, you'll get the zodiac. You'll get the 12 sections of the year, and I can show you that another day. But that's why there are 12. So it's 12 around 1. It's not 13. So 13 doesn't work. That's another issue, but they're 12 equal sections. And they call them signs. So we'd probably call these months, right? 12 months. But that's another story because month comes from moon. So now what they did was they named these 12 sections with symbols. And the symbols symbolize the energy that is around at that time of the year in this cycle. Okay. So for example, Aries, that's named after the constellation Aries, the ram. And it's the energy of the first month of spring in the Northern Hemisphere. So it's like the ram bursting across the equator into spring and all the new life and fertility and all the flowers starting to bloom and the buds on the trees and new life, everything's going up. And so on, Taurus, this was named after Taurus the bull in this constellation and so on. All right, so the symbols really are the true names of the signs or months, if you want to use that term. But in English, we use the Latin names with the symbols. All right, so this one in Latin was called Aries, and this one Taurus and Gemini and so on. And they're the names we still use today in English. So this is the tropical zodiac, all right? So these signs, these 12 signs, they share the names of the zodiac constellations, but they're not, again, they're not the star constellations, all right? They're just months. They're months in a 12-month seasonal calendar based on the orbit of the Earth, all right? And when, I think Rabito has his son in Sagittarius. So he was born when we were in this part of the cycle. And my son is in Gemini. So I was born when we were over here and so on. So if you know what your sign is, you can see what part of the year you were born in. And saying you're born, saying I'm a Sagittarius, that's like saying I'm a December or I'm a November or whatever, okay? So again, it's not the constellation. It's a month on Earth. Right. So this is where we get this wheel, the zodiac, from. So this is like the sun here. And I've put it now using my iPod, look, I've orientated the same as this. So Aries is here and Virgo, Libra, Pisces like this, look. And we got the solstice over here. So I've done that the same. So you got Aries there, you got Gemini and Cancer here, and Virgo and Libra, and there's Sagittarius and Capricorn over there, right? So it's the same. So what the tropical, also known as the Western zodiac is, it's just the orbit of the Earth, a year, divided into 12 equal segments, which we can call signs or months or whatever, but they're all 30 degrees of the orbit, all right? So it's basically a seasonal calendar. Right, so why are the 12 divisions, which we might call months, why are they called signs? Well, a sign, if you look at the etymology of sign and look up some of the meanings of sign, it can be a motion or a gesture in sign language. So the sun has motion and the earth has motion. So that gives us a sign. It's also something that suggests a fact, condition, or quality. So the day's getting longer is a sign that summer is coming. Yeah. An advertisement or a notice is a sign. So Aries says, hey, spring is here. It's like a big sign with an Aries symbol saying spring is here. It can also be a figure, device, or symbol that represents something. So as we said, Aries represents the energy of the first month of spring and the energy of the ram, the male sheep, and him and his partner having baby lambs and all of that stuff. And it's also a sign is also an indication of something. So like flowers is a sign of spring. And of course, interestingly as well, when we sign something, that's our signature, but it's our signature because it's to uniquely write your name. And again, the 12 signs, they all have unique signatures as well. They have unique energies, which is a unique combinations of certain energies that only happen in those specific months, okay? Now, we shouldn't really call them months, because although month has become known as 1/12 part of a year, it originally, of course, comes from moon. So the month was the interval between one new moon and the next. All right. So the month is actually based on the moon cycle, but we're talking about the year cycle here, right? Which is based on the sun. So the signs are based on the sun, months are based on the moon. All right. And just to hammer that home, if you look at month, look, you've got 6 different definitions just in one dictionary here. So, you know, it can be the unit of time for one moon cycle, about 30 days. It can be 12 divisions of the year. It can be a period extending from a date in one calendar to the next, a sidereal month, a lunar month, or a solar month. You know, so when you say month, like what month are you talking about? But if you say a sign, you know it's a 30-degree section of the year. Okay. And also signs are in Genesis in the Bible. So in the King James Version, Genesis 1:14-15 says, then God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons and for days and years. And notice, please, guys, it doesn't say weeks anywhere. So the weeks are made up and they don't exist in nature, and there's no cycle, there's 7 days, all right? And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth. So there's another reason maybe why they're called signs. All right, so yeah, why is it called the tropical zodiac? So it's because of this tilt of the axis, which gives us these tropics, these big circles on the earth, and you'll see them on any map of the globe. If you look above and below the equator, you'll see the tropics there. So all of those things, you know, with the seasons and the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn, the Arctic circles, they're all to do with the tilt of the axis. And tropic comes from the Latin and ancient Greek tropos, which means a turn. All right. So once the sun reaches either of the tropics, it turns and goes the other way. So that's why it's called tropical. Anyone living in between those two lines, they say we live in the tropics. Okay. And this is why the tropical zodiac is called the tropical zodiac. So I just want to show you that. Look, if we look at the Earth from out in space, and if we were to track the sun's position relative to the Earth throughout the year. So now with our iPod, okay, we're looking from space at the Earth. So now it's going to go this way, all right? Not the other way. So at the start of the year, on the spring equinox, the sun would be right over the equator, and then it would climb through the sign of Aries. As I say, we could call that a month, and Taurus and Gemini, and then when it gets to here, it's above the Tropic of Cancer, and that's called that because that's the first day of the month of Cancer. And then it starts coming down, it goes through Cancer, Leo, and Virgo, and then it's back on the equator again. Then it comes down south of the equator into Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius, and then it's over the Tropic of Capricorn because that's the first day of the month of Capricorn. And then we have Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, and then it's back to where it started. All right, so if you take either half of this and wrap it around onto the other one, you'll get a circle, yeah? And that's how we get the circle of the tropical zodiac. I hope that makes sense, but let's just have a look at that. So here's the year divided up again. And now I've added in midwinter and mid-spring and midsummer and mid-autumn, all right? So now we've got we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've got 8 special times of the year for the equinoxes, the solstices, and the midpoints in between them. And this is known by our ancestors as the eightfold year, and they had festivals on all of these 8 times of the year. When they would light fires, they would normally do them on a moon nearest to that time. And they'd light a bonfire and dance around and all the rest of it. And they're celebrating the energies of that particular time. So let's just have a look what they are. All right, so the spring equinox. So this is, March the 20th in the Gregorian. Here's the sun over the equator. And that was called Ostara. This is where we get Easter from. And in Portugal, that's the festival of San Jose. And that's when the start of the year is. And that's where this year always started until the Gregorian calendar came along, and they moved the start of the year back into the winter. Okay, so if we go through at mid-spring, in the middle of Taurus, that was always called Beltane. Now it's kind of May Day or Labor Day, depending where you are. And the sun's already gone 70% of the way up from the equator, even though it's only gone half the way round this bit. It's gone 70% of the way up in the sky, okay? But then when we go to the next one, on the summer solstice, that was called Litha. And people called it midsummer. Now, why did they call it midsummer when it's the start of summer? Well, that's because they're talking about the summer of light and not the summer of heat. So that can get confusing as well, because we have 4 seasons of heat driven by the equinoxes and solstices, but we have 4 seasons of light driven by the midpoints between the seasons of heat, okay? So the summer of light starts in the middle of the spring of heat, all right? And it goes to the middle of the summer of heat. So this point was then called midsummer. So what they should put here is midsummer brackets of light, all right? So that's the lightest time of the year, all right? But there's a 45-degree offset between the light increasing and the heat that follows it. So you get the heat coming 45 days after the light, kind of thing, all right? So that's where we are, Tropic of Cancer. And then when we get to midsummer, that's called Lunsar or Flamas, depending where you are. And again, now the sun's still only dropped this bit down in the sky. So you can see that bit from there to there is really, that's been the lightest time of the year, when the sun's still high in the sky. And then when we get to the Libra equinox, the sun's back over the equator. That's called Mabon. And it's the festival of St. Thomas or St. Matthew or St. Matthias, Sao Mateus, depending where you are in the Catholic world. Okay, and then we get to a very famous one, mid-autumn. So that's around bonfire night in Britain, November the 5th, 6th, 7th, around there in the Gregorian. And now the sun's dropped all the way down, 70% of the way down below the equator. And this mid-autumn is in the middle of Scorpio, and that was called Samhain. And it's where we get Halloween from, or the Day of the Dead. And it's also the start of what they call Carnival in lots of parts of Europe. So this is the start of the winter of light, the darkest time of the year, but it's in the middle of the autumn of heat, okay? So don't get heat and light mixed up. Then when we go to the Capricorn solstice, the sun is over the Tropic of Capricorn again. That's called Yule, or again, midwinter, in brackets of light, all right? And it's the start of the winter season of heat. And that's when, of course, we have Christmas, and that's when they said Jesus was born. Because, you know, Jesus is a sun symbol. And this is when the sun is at its lowest point. Okay, and then we go to sorry, guess go this way. Go to midwinter, which was called Imbolc or Candlemas. That's the end of Carnival that started in mid-autumn. And that's the start of the spring of light, because now the sun's going to start climbing up in the sky very rapidly. And that's when we have Chinese New Year. So that's in the middle of Aquarius. And again, the Chinese do that based on the moon. I think it's the second moon after this solstice in Aquarius. That's when they have their New Year. That's why their date of New Year moves all over the place, because they're using the moon, see? Every time you try and use the moon for yearly things, it fucks everything up. And of course, you wouldn't do that normally, but through the Kali Yuga, the age of ignorance, people forgot how a lot of this stuff worked, and they got very mixed up. And that's why we've got like 46 different calendars in use in the world, and, you know, all named after different people and doing different things. But basically, this is the cycle that's common to the whole world, okay? And then we get back to the spring equinox again. That's the start of Aries, March the 20th, okay? And that's the full cycle. So there's 8 special times a year. And there it is again. So we got spring, summer, autumn, winter, and the other way around if you're in the southern hemisphere. Now, just using our iPod again, if we were to look at it, if we're on the Earth looking out, we're on the Earth looking out into space, it would look to go this way. It would go spring, summer, autumn, winter, okay? So it would go the opposite way to this. This is looking from space at the Earth. And if we're on the Earth looking out, we would see it going anti-clockwise, with Aries here would be on our right. Yeah, okay.
So you're saying if we're looking out from space, that's what it would look like. But you're looking from a very specific point in space then, aren't you? No? Yeah?
Well, I mean, it doesn't really matter.
Just a revolving ball. I'm getting a bit kind of...
Yeah, I mean, we're
taking it as a given that the world is that way up. We're taking a lot about the actual position of the Earth here, aren't we? For granted or accepted.
Well, that's why I'm saying use your iPod, because we need to be clear what perspective we're looking from and which direction we're looking in and all the rest of it. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, if we're out in space looking at the Earth and we just stop the Earth rotating, and we were to mark where the sun was above and below the equator each time of the year, this is what we would get. But if we were on the Earth looking out into space, we'd be looking this would be on our right and this would be on our left. Yeah. So this, you know, this is west and this is east. And it would be the other way around if we're looking out. That's all I'm saying. So the sine wave will go the other way if we're looking from Earth, which is what it actually does. And I'm going to show you that in a sec, okay? On a package called Stellarium. So hopefully it'll be a bit clearer then. But so you're not so what are you I presume you're not talking about flat Earth or anything there, Helen, or anything?
No,
like that?
no. That I to be fair, I'm one of those what difference does it make to me in my life whether it's flat or round? It doesn't. So it's not one of them things that I think about flat or round. It's just in terms of whether it's flat or round. If you know, we have an agreed, that's the southern hemisphere. That's the, you know, there's the southern, there's the northern. That's east, that's west. We've agreed that, but this is something that's just spinning round. You know, it's going round. So it could, you know, we could have agreed it the other way around, couldn't we?
Oh, absolutely, and that's why we want a universal calendar that doesn't talk about north and south and summer and winter and all that. It just talks about quarters wherever you are, you know, and then it's the same, which is basically what I did. So people use terms like summer solstice, you know, but if you're in the southern hemisphere up here, this is their winter solstice, because it's the other way around for them. But it's always the Cancer solstice, whether you're in the north or the south. If you say it's the Cancer solstice, it doesn't matter where you are, you'll be right, you know.
Yeah.
But if you say summer or winter, you'll be wrong in half of the world, you know. Okay. So that's one of the reasons I think it's important what words we use, you know, for things. But hopefully that answers your question. You know, and all I'm showing here is across through Greenwich, because Greenwich is the prime meridian. So we've all agreed, or some people agreed, that that's where, basically, when the British Empire was big, you know, they managed to get the prime meridian through London. But really, it should be over here through Giza, where the Great Pyramids are, because that is the biggest landmass from north to south. So the prime meridian would go through the most land if it was there, just there, and that's why the pyramids. One of the reasons the pyramids are where they are was to mark the prime meridian, like the middle of the earth. Probably why we call it the Middle East, right? Right. So, yeah. So I want to just jump out of here a minute. How do I do that? Right. Okay. So I need to share. How are you all doing, guys? You all right? Yeah. Right. Let me get right. We're gonna. Right. Hopefully you can see this. Right. Can you all see that?
Can see an ocean.
Right. You should be able to see an ocean and some sky. Yeah.
Yeah.
With the sun in it. Right.
Yeah.
So we're gonna look. Yeah. Everyone see that? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put my mouse on here. I need to be able to. Here we go. Right. Okay. Right. So now we got a load of blurb about the sun. So this is the sun, and that's the horizon. So what I'm going to do, you can see the cardinal point. So that's west. All right, southwest. That's south. So that's where the meridian goes through. And, you know, this is east over here and so on. All right. So what I'm going to do, have a look at the sun. So I'm going to center the sun in a minute. Some of my things aren't working like they normally do. But yeah, right. Okay. So I've turned the atmosphere off, all right, so we can see the sky. And now I'm going to put the equator on, right? So this blue line, that's the equator of the Earth projected out into space, all right? And down here, you can see the date, all right? So I'm going to set this to today. So this is where it is now. All right. And then we're going to put on what's called the ecliptic. All right. So that orange line is the ecliptic. And what the ecliptic is the path of the sun, the apparent path of the sun in the sky. Okay. Now, because we're at night where I am, the sun is set below the horizon. All right. So I'm going to turn the ground off. And then we can see the sun. Right. Now I'm going to put the sun in the middle of the sky. All right. Now, so that's where the ground is. So now I'm going to tilt it so that we orientate ourselves to the sun. All right. So with our iPod, we're going to orientate it. So there's the slope. That's how much the Earth is tilted. All right. Where I am in Lisbon at the moment. So I'm going to turn the ground off again. And there's the sun. All right. Now, can you see this little Aries symbol here? Yeah. All right. So that's the equator. And this is the path of the sun. Right. So if we go back, watch the date at the bottom. If we go back to March the 20th, all right, you can see now that the sun is crossing the equator going north, all right? So this is the path of the sun, and that's the equator. And that's why it's marked Aries, because that's the start of the year cycle we've been talking about, the tropical zodiac. And it's the first day of the sign or month of Aries, okay? That's named after the constellation Aries. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to speed things up a bit. All right, and I'm just going to turn the ground on so you can see this is the ground going by, okay? So we sped things up quite a bit now. So I'm going to turn the ground off again. All right, and that's that green line, that's the southern meridian passing, all right? So you can see now the sun's going up along the ecliptic and it's going above, more and more above the equator, right? Now what I'm going to do is speed up a bit more, and you'll see it goes up to a peak there. Now, if we stop, can you see this Cancer symbol? All right, so when the sun is there, that's, as we can see here, June the 20th, look. All right, so this is summer solstice, and the sun will be over the Tropic of Cancer on the Earth, okay? And then this is 23.5 degrees here from the equator up to the ecliptic. Right, now to show you that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put on this grid here. This is called the ecliptic grid. All right. And basically, if you remember, the ecliptic grid is the astronomer's name for the tropical zodiac. All right. So now we can see this is divided into hours. These are 15 degrees. So this is like 1 hour on Earth in the day as the Earth spins. So 2 of these sections is one sign of 30 days, 30 degrees approximately, okay? Definitely 30 degrees, approximately 30 days. So let's go on again. Let's speed it up again a bit. And now the sun comes down till we get here. And can you see this Libra symbol just here? So when we get here, that's the end of the summer. Let's speed it up again. And then it crosses the equator going south. So that was an equinox there. And then it goes down to the lowest point. And when it gets here, we got a Capricorn symbol. So this is when the sun is over the Tropic of Capricorn. And it's, if we look at this, it's 5, 10, 15, 20, 23.5 degrees below the equator. All right. So we can see that there. Like these are 5 degrees, 5, 10, 15, 20, 23. And that's, so on that day, the sun will be over the Tropic of Capricorn. So if we speed it up again, now it's going through winter, and then it'll come back to here. And when it gets to the Aries symbol again, that's the end of winter. All right, and then it goes into spring again. Right now, so this bit from here to here, this is Aries. This is the month or the sign of Aries. So let's just come back to the end of there. And you can see the date here, 20th of April, all right? So 20th of April is when the month of Taurus starts. So if we speed up again, we've gone through Aries. This bit is Taurus. Let's speed it up again. And we go through Taurus. This bit's Gemini. Then we get to this summer solstice, Cancer solstice. That was Cancer. This is Leo. This bit is Virgo. And then we get to the Libra equinox. And then this is Libra. Now we're going through Scorpio. Then this is Sagittarius. Then we get to the Capricorn solstice. And then this is Capricorn. This is Aquarius, and this is Pisces, and then we get back again. All right, so that's the year cycle, and that's the tropical zodiac. All right, so it's just dividing the year into 12 equal sections and naming them after the zodiac constellations. All right, so let's just give it one more go really fast, and you can see it goes up and down. Look. And so that's that sine wave I drew onto the Earth in the earlier slide before we did this little demo. All right, so that's what actually happens. So that's a natural cycle with natural astronomical divisions. And if you stay in sync with this cycle, you're staying in sync with what's going on in nature. All right, so any questions about that before we go back? Oh,
I do. Am I right in thinking then that if you this is where your chart comes from in terms of when somebody does your chart with your date of birth, you would go to where their date of birth, and then you would see where Venus was, Mars was, Mercury was, Moon was, all the other things were. That's how
that's
you
right.
pinpoint it. Okay.
Exactly right, Helen. Yeah. So you
Okay.
would look at which part of this grid they're all in, and whichever part of the grid they're in, that's the sign that they're in. Yeah. Exactly. So if we were to change the date here to your birthday, then the sun would move to where it was when you were born, okay? And then we'd see what sign it's in, and we'd see where all the other planets are. Okay? Right. So that's the tropical zodiac. So I need to see if I can jump out of this now. I think we can do it like that. And then I've got to share another new share. No, not that one. Right. Now I need to go back to this one, I think. Oh, what's happened there? I seem to have lost my share window.
If you just hover over where it was.
Ah, yeah, got it. Thank you. Okay. So I need to put this on slideshow again, don't I? Start from current slide. All right. Can you all see that or not?
Yeah, I can see it.
So it should say Stellarium, the ecliptic sine wave, yeah?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, so there we go. So that's the Western tropical zodiac. All right, so it's the apparent path of the sun on the ecliptic sine wave divided into 12 equal segments. So that could be another reason they're called signs, because it's on a sine wave. All right. Right, so now we're going to just look at the sidereal zodiac and the zodiac of constellations. All right. And this is the zodiac of constellations. So here's that sine wave we were just looking at. Look. But now this kind of mess here of all these lines that looks like a map of Texas or something is basically the constellation boundaries from NASA and the astronomers have put on there. Okay. So rather than the signs, the 12 divisions of the year, now these are the actual constellations. All right. So you can see they're all different sizes. Aries is only this big, but Virgo is this big. And you've also got a sign here, a constellation called the Fucus, which also is on the ecliptic for a little part of the year. So you do have people saying that there should be 13 signs because they're getting confused between constellations and tropical signs, all right? And they're saying a Fucus should be a sign, and that all the dates of the signs are wrong, and all this kind of thing. So there's a lot of confusion. But this is the zodiac of constellations, all right? So if we just go back to Stellarium. Can you all still see Stellarium? Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So now what I'm going to do, now I'm going to show you, now I've showed you the tropical zodiac. I'm going to show you the sidereal zodiac. All right. So if we put the constellations on, these blue things here are the constellations. These are the shapes we get when we join up the stars that they've said are in these constellations. All right. And they don't look like anything, but if I put the names on, you can see this one's Virgo, and this one's Libra, and down here is Scorpio. But it still don't really look like much, does it? But if we put the artwork on, now you can kind of see what they're talking about. But you'll kind of notice that really the constellations don't look anything like they're meant to look like, you know. They're really arbitrary shapes that they've made to look like things because they wanted to have figures in mythology that symbolize the energies around in the tropical year. All right. And it's the difference between the tropical grid that you can see in orange and these constellations, the positions of them that tell us where we are in the great year. Okay, so that's how we know what level of consciousness we can expect to have. So if I start speeding it up again, and we stick with the sun, ascend to the sun, now you can see this is the constellation Scorpio, all right? And this one's Libra, all right? And now here, look, here's our Capricorn solstice point, 23.5 degrees below the equator. So I'm going to stop it there. All right, so this month here on the grid is Sagittarius, and this one is Capricorn, all right? But you can see that the constellation of Scorpio is in the month of Sagittarius, and the constellation of Sagittarius is in the month of Capricorn. So they've all shifted, all right? And they'll carry on shifting from right to left at 1 degree every 71.5 years. All right. And it's which constellation is in which tropical zodiac month or sign tells us where we are in the great year. Right. So we know the level of consciousness. So let's just have one quick squiz through this. All right. So now there's Aquarius, the water bearer. Here's Pisces, the fishes. There's Aries. So you can see, look, Aries is pretty much in Taurus. Taurus is in Gemini. Here's Cancer solstice. So this one is Gemini, but Taurus, the constellation Taurus is in Gemini. All right, so they've all shifted roughly one around. So that's why there's a lot of confusion about the zodiacs and what the hell's going on. All right. But once you understand this, it's really easy.
Sorry, I've got another question. I got to,
Yeah.
because if I don't have, so when they say, like now they're on about, oh shit, I can't even word it properly. So we are in Aries in, oh gosh, I know what I mean.
You mean
I'm
the age
looking
of Aquarius?
Sorry?
Do you mean the
No,
age of
no,
Aquarius?
no. They took when people oh, it doesn't matter, it's gone. It'll come back. Thank you, sorry.
That's all right. Well, when you remember what it was, give me another shout. All right. So yeah, that's just to show you you know, the journey of the sun through these constellations was called the hero's journey. And this is what all the Greek mythology and stuff's about. It's astrotheology. So they made stories about this, the sun's journey through the year. And also the fact that it all moves. So there's a really good book, for example, called Hamlet's Mill, which talks about how all these things are moving over the years. All right. So these, you can see there's Gemini, look, the twins, the crab. This one's Leo. Now, Leo's one of the few ones that actually looks something like, you know, if I turn the artwork off, you can see the
Sorry,
shape.
that's what I mean. So when they say things like Cancer in Leo, what they mean is we're in the month, the 12, the thing of Cancer, but we're in the constellation of Leo. Is that what they mean? That's what I was asking. Is that where
Yeah, so
that comes from?
yes, if they're saying Cancer is in Leo, they're saying the constellation Cancer is in the month of Leo.
Oh, that's the other way around to what I thought, but okay. It's the same kind of vibration.
Yeah, you know, because look, here's the Libra equinox. So this month here, this is Virgo, but the constellation Leo is in Virgo, all right? So Leo, this is Leo. Leo's before Virgo, but the constellation before is in the sign after, all right? So you can see why people get confused, all right? There's Leo. But it's one of the few that actually looks like what it is. So there we go. This is the hero's journey of mythology and Hercules and Apollo and all of these different things. And this is what it's all about. It's all stories about the sun and the seasonal cycle of the year. All right, so the thing is with the sidereal zodiac is it's like this tropical one. So it's a grid like this, but it's not the constellations, but it's all the stars of the constellations, but also divided into equal 30-degree sections, right? But it starts at some star in one of the constellations. Now, believe it or not, like there's 46 different calendars in use in the world, there's 38 different versions of where the sidereal zodiac starts compared to the tropical one, right? So like, if we go on, let's get back to, slow down a bit. I want to get to, yeah, right. So here's the, this is the first point of Aries tropical. And you can see we got Pisces in there. So if I just move this. Now the start of the sidereal zodiac, which is also 12 equal 30-degree divisions, one of the starts, if I just zoom in a bit. If I zoom in, right, this star here. So see this star Ravati. It's Zeta Pisceum. It's called Ravati. It's this star here in Pisces. And that's one of the proposed starting points of the sidereal zodiac. So they're saying the sidereal sign of Aries would start at this star in Pisces, all right? And then they divide that up into 12 equal 30-degree segments. So it's offset by this much. From there, where the tropical starts, they're saying this is where the sidereal starts. Now, back in about 500 AD, when these were all lined up, this star was back here. So if I go to the date and time window, if I put in 500 roughly, can you see this star's here now? Look. So the star we just looked at that was over there is now close to the first point of Aries. And now you've got, here's Aries. So if I zoom out again, try and zoom out. Let's turn this off. Right, zoom out. Okay. So now that's the star, look. And now you can see Aries is in the month of Aries tropical. All right, and Taurus is in Taurus. So this is 500 AD. This is the bottom of the Kali Yuga. This is the bottom of the Great Year, with the Age of Ignorance, when all the constellations were lined up with their tropical months that are named after them. All right. So we can see that when there's no balance, we have the Age of Ignorance, because the zodiac is made of poo. All right, it's pairs of opposites. So Aries goes with Libra, and Taurus goes with Scorpio, and so on. They go in opposite pairs. All right. So we get the golden age when the constellation Aries is over in the month of Libra. So they're all balanced in their opposites balance, okay? And that's when we get golden age. But when they're in the same alignment and it's not balanced, then we get the Age of Ignorance. All right, so that's the tropical, sidereal, and constellational zodiac, the 3 zodiacs. Right, before I get off this, any questions? And how are we doing for time? 9:30. So we've done about an hour so far from when we started, by the time we got going. Is everyone okay to finish off? Yeah. Okay, cool. So no questions. So I'm going to jump out of here and go back to this one. All right, so that's what we were just looking at. All these constellations, different sizes, right? So the 3 zodiacs. So going back to the agenda, we just want to look now at how we can use the zodiacs as a calendar. Because the zodiacs are the universal celestial calendar. It's a celestial calendar based on what goes on in nature, in the sky, following the zodiac cycle of the year. All right. So this is a picture of the calendar I created in 2012, before I knew about any of this, and I didn't have any astrology on it. It was just numbers. So I just had 12 months, and I divided it into 36 decans of 10 days. And I had these 5 special days, and I based it on the great year cycle, the year number, but I didn't know it. I didn't know about really properly precession. I didn't know about the 3 zodiacs. And my first month, I called it Pisces to start with, because I knew we were in the age of Pisces. All right. So I was just as confused as everyone. But basically, the zodiacs form a calendar. All right. So I called it the Universal Celestial Calendar. It's a Freeman calendar. I've got three web domain addresses for it: freemancalendar.com, ucc.zone, and universalcelestialcalendar.com. All right. And on there, you've got resources for the calendar. So as you can see, this is the tropical zodiac, and this is the calendar. So you can see they're all lined up the same. So with the iPod, Aries is here, Aries is here. So the sun through the year goes, this is like the equator. These are the equinoxes. And the sun goes up to the Cancer solstice and down to Libra equinox and down to the Capricorn solstice and back up. So this calendar actually shows you what happens in the sky with the sun as well. All right. And this is how it works. So you've got 12 signs or months, which I call triads, all right, because triad means group of 3, and there's 3 in each season, and each one of them has 3 subsections of 10 days. So triad. So there's 36 decans of 10 days. So there's no 7-day weeks, and there's no weekends and weekdays, because you don't want to end up in the weekdays on the weekend when you're a weekend. And then you have 4 quarters of 90 days. And that gives you 360 standard days, all right? 12 times 30. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 special days makes 365. And then you have 8 seasonal festivals like we looked at in the mid-seasons and the start of the seasons. So 1 New Year's Day and 4 New Seasons days. And that is what they call a perennial solar calendar. So it's based on the sun, which is the thing that defines the year. And it's perennial. So it repeats exactly the same every year. You don't have days moving by one each time and all of this. I mean, basically, if it wasn't for the Gregorian day of the week changing all the time, I wouldn't need to change my calendar at all. I could print it out on a laminate and just write on it and wipe it off and start again with the same one the next year. Because it is, nature's cycle is perennial. It repeats the same. So any questions about that structure before I move on? It's basically kind of mimicking the zodiac, although I didn't know it at the time. And I've named the triad months 1 Aries, 2 Taurus, 3 Gemini, and so on. So here's one triad or 1 month. This one's the first one of the year, and this is this year. This is the year of the great year that we're in, 13525. The first month, one Aries, first triad. So here's the Gregorian date at the bottom. And these are the first 3 deacons, 1, 2, 3. And you got 10 days in each. They all line up. So all of these are 1's days. These are 2's days. These are 3's days. These are 4's days. These are 5's days. Really simple. And you can do it on your hands, on your fingers. And I've also put all the new and full moons and moon quarters on there, and all the days the sun goes into the tropical zodiac sign that these months are named after, okay? So you can see that on the website. So, and this is my calendar printed out on my wall in my kitchen. So this is practical use. So this is Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo. These are the special days. So I've actually got it orientated to the way it goes. And then I write on that. And this is the image I just showed you, and this is the cover. All right. So you can actually, if you do it like this, you really get in sync with it, because when you can, when you're up here, you are actually where the sun is relative to the equator here. So that's something I do. And it keeps me in sync. And then I've said here, show the calendar. Okay, so calendars. So I just want to go to the website. So this is the main page for the website. So you got it tells you about it there, how it works. This is the app. That's some blogs. This is a calendar converter. So you can just do a simple conversion there by typing in things if you want to. Or you can go back. Can I go back? Yeah. So if you want to download a full calendar, click here. And then this is a common calendar. You can write the year number in there. And then you get the whole page just for New Year's Day. So that's 21st of March, Gregorian. You can look at what you did over the last year and what you're going to do for the year to come. Then you get a special day for the start of the first season, and you can look back. So for us in the Northern Hemisphere, we'd be looking back at winter here, and then we'd be looking forward to spring here. And then we go into the one I showed you, ONE-Aries, 30 days, and then 30 days of Taurus. And you can print it out and write on it. This is the mid-season festival year. Then we got Gemini. Then we have some more festival days for the Cancer solstice, festival of Cancer. So we get a special day there just to celebrate the solstice, and then I'd look back here over spring, just gone, and then I'd look forward to summer here. And if you're down under, you do it, you do it with your seasons. Then we go into summer, 4 Cancer, 5 Leo, 6 Virgo. Then we have another special day for the Libra equinox, Festival of Libra. So I'd look back over summer here, and I'd look forward to autumn there. Then we go into Libra. This is the day of the equinox. And when we get into Scorpio, this is the mid-season festi. So that's like Samhain that we looked at earlier. Then you got Sagittarius, and then you got a special day for Capricorn, festi, solstice. Then you got 3 months of winter. Yeah. And then back, and that's the back cover. So you can download that and print it out and write on it if you want, or you can stick it on your wall, or you can take it to the toilet and do other things with it if you don't like it that much, but hopefully not. So that's the full year calendar. There's also a year planner, and this is generic. So this is the same. This is Aries, Taurus, Gemini. So you can print this out big. These are the special days. You got the whole season of spring there, then summer, winter, autumn, sorry, and winter. So that's a year planner. And the ones two I've just showed you, the year planner and the full calendar, they work the same every year. So you can just use the same one. But if you want a specific one for this year, you can download the specific year planner, and this has got all the moons on it. So you got the moon phases on it, and it's got the actual days of the week on it. The generic one doesn't have the days of the week, but everything else stays the same. It's only the weekdays that mess it all up. And then you can also download a full year calendar just for this year. So 13525, which is 2024-25. And it's the leap year, right? So they get an extra day, day 0, for leap year's day. And this is good because you can look back to the last leap year, which was 2020, which started at lockdown, basically. And that, it's the same, but on these specific ones, you've got the day of the week on there. So all of these months, they've all got the Saturday, Sunday, Monday. But that's the only thing that changes, if you're not bothered about the day, the week, it's all the same. So that's all free to download. And then you can write on here where all your planets are and your birth chart and all your transits and everything. And that's what me and my housemate do. We put when there's a full moon, we put our new moon intentions and the new moon intentions and so on. Right. So that's all on the website. And of course, you've got the app, which is an automated version of the whole thing. So you can, some of the, on the screen share, some of the buttons don't work, unfortunately. But yeah, I've got the app here as well. Maybe this will work. Yeah, there we go. So on the app, you can show the yoga cycle, or you can turn that off and just show the sidereal zodiac and the tropical zodiac, or you can turn the sidereal one off and just show the tropical. And you can show the mark the year and put the year number on there. You can put the moon on there and the day marker. And you can put the date heading on, and you can put all the data tables. It tells you all the Gregorian stuff and everything. And the menu button. And you can change, you can input dates here, Gregorian dates, and it'll convert it to where everything was on that day. Or you can put a UCC date in there, and it'll switch it to where that is, and then it'll tell you what the Gregorian date is. So you can do calendar conversions, and you can also animate it. So if this is set to 1 decan, so it'll jump back and forth by 10 days. And if we animate that, you can see this going round in 10 days at a time. And you see the decans lighting up. And the month that the triad month, the sign that it's in, lights up as well, and it leaves a yellow mark to show you how far through the year you've gone. And of course the moon as well. And you can see on this one, the Earth's at the center, and it's showing you which half of the Earth is lit. So then that also tells you what constellations you'll see in the sky at night on that time of the year as well. So I could go on all day about that, but I won't. Just to let you know it's there, and you can play around with it and let me know what you think. So lots of stuff with the calendar. And let me jump back to the presentation. Right. All right. I showed you the calendar in the app. All right. So that's how you can use the Zodiacs as a calendar. But like, what's the point of it all, you know? What does it do for you? Well, so this is the last part, using the calendar. So using and working with it. All right. So, you know, earlier we were saying it's a practical, you can use it practically to aid knowing who you are for self-realization and how you can develop your consciousness to ascend in consciousness. Because astrology is a tool to help us do all those things we looked at earlier. But how does it do that? Okay, so how it does that, how you do that, how you work with this calendar is by producing, studying, knowing and understanding your astrological birth chart. So if you get a birth chart done, this circle around the edge is the tropical zodiac. So these are the 12 months or signs or whatever, triads, whatever you want to call them, but the 12 divisions of the year, all right? So they're not the constellations, as I keep saying, but they're those 12 sections of the year. And where all your planets are in your chart, it tells you basically which month of the year they were all in when you were born. And this is like your blueprint that you come into life with. So this is like a map of your possible journey through life. So we can use our birth chart to sync and work with the natural cycles of the sun and the moon and the planets inside our solar system, which is the body, the cosmic body that we live within, if you like. And that also, this zodiac also goes through our own body as well. So if you want to do that, you can do a workshop with me called The Shape of My Chart. You know, Sting had a song, That's Not the Shape of My Heart. And I've got a workshop called This Is the Shape of My Chart. Because I do like a pun. And this is something I came up with in 13519. You can tell it was in winter because it was 2019 Gregorian. And shape stands for signs, houses, aspects, planets, and energies of all of those four. So this is something I came up with as an easy way to remember how your birth chart works. And then I do a workshop which explains how the signs work and the houses and all these things here. So that's really worth doing, I would say. For example, you can look at your sun, your moon, and your ascendant, which represent your father, your mother, and your child till you're 30. This is your seed generator. This is your grower sustainer. This is your physical manifestation. The sun represents your spirit, your individuality, your essence, your fire. The moon represents your soul, mind, your emotions, and aspects of your personality, and water and air. And your ascendant represents your physical body and your self-image. That's your earth sign. So we look at all of that. You know, and then using the zodiac and the calendar, you can really sync in and work with planetary transits. So where the planets are moving now, compared to where they were in your birth chart, they're called transits. And that's like how they do a horoscope. All right. So they say, you know, this planet's in this aspect to that planet when you were born, and that means this kind of energy. And then on the new and full moon, you can, so every lunar cycle, you can set intentions. Okay. And with the solar cycle throughout the year, you can set intentions, all right, depending which sign things are in, which is the same for everyone collectively. The sign that's in is the same for everyone, but the house that those things are in your chart is how it's individually tailored to you. So we look at all of that, and all of that helps you go with the flow of the as above, so below. All right, and you can also not only look at transits, but you can put your chart and your partner's chart together and look at compatibility as well. And then you can explain why you always have the same arguments about the same things all the time. All right, so that's how you can practically use it. And if you like, we can do a session sometime where we do the shape of your chart, and I'll show you all. If you don't know already, I'll show you how to get your birth chart and actually understand what it's saying and use it throughout the year. Okay, and that's the end. Thank you very much. So that was an hour and a half. So thank you for staying with me. I was thinking it was going to be an hour and a half-ish. So yeah, I know we came on at 8, but I don't think we got going till 7:30, did we? So right.
Thank you.
So any
Would you like
questions?
to stop sharing your screen?
Yeah.
And Kathleen, if you go into the chat, Kathleen's got a whole load of questions that she was typing into the chat.
Hello, Kath. Okay, there's the
If
chat.
we just work our ways up. By the
my
way,
God,
everybody, like where I am now, it's almost 10 p.m. So if anybody
you look a bit tired, dude.
Oh yeah, it's been, and the lighting's terrible here. But anyway,
How's the house move go?
good. Yeah, really good. But yeah, it doesn't feel like my solar time to me. It feels like clock time.
Right.
Let me just see.
Okay. So
I
there's a
can
lot in the
probably
chat. Yeah,
there's 3
you
that
just want
come to
to,
mind.
yeah, just ask me,
on the
now.
chat.
So sorry, go on. Go on.
Thank you. That was just mind-blowing. That should be a foundation course for every apprentice of the universe.
Oh, thanks, darling.
Is it the part of fortune symbol that I've seen throughout your presentation, or was it the earth symbol?
Yeah, I mean, I think the part of fortune is that one, right? The
Yeah.
part of I mean, the part of fortune is like the difference between your ascendant, your sun, and your moon, right? But yeah, that was the earth symbol. Because the symbol for the earth is a circle with a cross, yeah? Because that's the solstices and the equinoxes. And also the cross symbolizes the cross of matter, and it's in the circle of spirit. Okay, so that tells you the symbol for the earth is this cross of matter in the circle of spirit. So what I'm saying is the physical and the spiritual exist in the same space-time. It's not that heaven is somewhere up here and earth is down here, they coexist in the same sphere. It's just they're vibrating at different frequencies. So when we're in the cross of matter, we're in our root chakra. And when we're in the circle of spirit, we're connected to our higher self. But most of the time we're somewhere in between, or we're trying to do the work to raise our vibration up to connect with our spirit. Yeah. But the thing is, this is why some people see ghosts and spirits and things, because they're all existing in the same space. So if you're tuned into that frequency, you can interact with those energies, right? But anyway, that's a very long answer to your question. So yeah.
And I just that came out because I thought of the connection to the wheel in the tarot, and I thought, well, that was very goes with everything, the great year. So I thought, I was just thinking about that. Second one was the week cycle. So the 7, we have Monday the moon, and then Sunday the sun. So we don't, in Gregorian we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but where do those, each day of the week ruled by a planet, how can that apply into what you've just shared?
Yeah, because if you remember, that's a good question. But of course, there aren't just 7 planets, there are 10.
Mhm.
So basically, with a 10-day deacon, you get a day for the sun and all of 9 main orbits around the sun. So if we were going to put the, I mean, do you remember when Helen was asking me about the solar system? We had that slide with the solar system. If you want, I can just put that back up. Or unless you remember it, right? But you got the sun, yeah. Then you got Mercury and Venus and the Earth,
Yeah.
or you can substitute that for the moon if you want. Then you got Mars. Then between Mars and Jupiter, you got the asteroid belt, and the biggest asteroid is Ceres. And so far, all these orbits are in the plane of the equator of the sun, yeah. And then you've got Jupiter, then you've got Saturn, then you've got Uranus, and then you've got Neptune, right? So you've got the sun and all 9 orbits around the sun. Pluto does a crazy elliptical orbit, as does Chiron between Saturn and Uranus. Yeah, so they're not like the orbits that are in the plane of the sun, the equator of the sun. So with the 10-day deacon, this is why the ancient Egyptians, one of the reasons they had a 10-day week as well, a 10-day deacon, they called it a decad, which I didn't know until after I come up with it. Because they had a day for the sun and the 9 orbits around the sun, not just the 5 visible planets and the sun and the moon. This is why the 7-day week, the 7-day week's a Kali Yuga construction. It's an age of ignorance construction. It keeps you trapped in the 7. And obviously 7 is a sacred number to some extent, but we need to break free of 7 and get to 8, 9, and 10 to really ascend and get connected to the higher levels, So the Egyptians also
That's why
followed.
Saturn comes in 7s, isn't it? To break us out of that 7.
Yeah, I mean,
7-year cycle.
As you say, Saturday is named after Saturn, and Saturn is the furthest out visible planet, so it's connected with the physical senses, and it's like the boundary, and you can't see Uranus and Neptune and Pluto and stuff with the naked eye, but they're there, and you can see them with a telescope. So that's telling you need to break free of just the physical senses. You need to get beyond the 7. And you need to connect with Uranus, which is your independence, your individuality, your freedom, your rebelliousness. And Neptune, which is the depth of your creativity and the connection to the deep imagination and deep spirit and all of that, And if you're staying in a 7-day thing, you're missing all of that because you're not interacting with it at all,
I would love to start working with the 10 instead of a 7. That would, because I already journal with them, but then I have to bring Pluto in on a Jupiter day or whatnot.
Yeah, sure. Well, you can download a free calendar, but if you want, Kath, I can do a tailored one, and that'll have your number of days you've been on the planet on the top of each day as well, because I count my age in days, and that's why I say Happy New Day, because every day is special, not just once a year. So if you'd like a calendar tailored to you, I can do that for you, no problem.
I'd love that. Thank you, Litmus. And then just the last question was our ascendant. How does I may be confused around this, but how does our ascendant fit into tropical sidereal? Because our ascendant, changes so as the sun rises, doesn't it? Like that's why you have to know the time of your birth.
Yeah, so your ascendant is basically your Earth sign. So it's where the Earth was in its rotation that day. So it's based on the time and place you were born. So it's the part of the tropical zodiac that's rising on the eastern horizon at the sunrise point at the time you were born. So you could have one tropical, I mean, this applies to everything, sun, moon, ascendant, all the planets. You can have a different tropical sign to your sidereal sign, because if you're going on the sidereal zodiac, you're going to be looking at the stars rising at that point, not the the 12 tropical months of the year, yeah? So instead of looking at the ecliptic grid, you're going to be looking at this arbitrary division of the stars. And as I say, so the difference between the sidereal and the tropical is called the Ayan Amsa in Hindi. It's an Indian word, and it basically means the difference. So there are actually, if you look on astro.com, there are 38 different proposed Ayan Amsas to define where the sidereal zodiac starts, okay? So that's one of the reasons I don't use the sidereal zodiac for personal astrology. I use a tropical, because the tropical makes sense because it's based on the seasons. And of course, with the pairs of signs, you would do it with the opposite sign for down under, yeah? So you need to look at your pairs of signs there because it's about seasonal energy. So yeah, I mean, roughly, all 38 Ayan Amsas are somewhere between 20 degrees and 24 degrees offset between the tropical zodiac and the sidereal zodiac. So that means that roughly now the sidereal sign has moved 2/3 of the way, 20 degrees, right? 30 degrees each sign. So 20 degrees is 2/3. So that's moved 2/3 into the following tropical sign, okay? So if you're born in the last decan of your tropical sign, you're going to have the same sidereal sign, all right? But if you're born in the first two decans of your tropical sign, you're going to have the sidereal sign before as your sidereal sign. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Because it's all 2/3. If you look at my calendar, basically, you can see it. If you look at the app, you'll see that the sidereal is moved about 20 degrees compared to the tropical. So it shows you there on the app, you know, or on the cover of the calendar or whatever. So you can see really easily, you know, if you know when you were born, you can see which sidereal sign you'd have and which tropical one. But I only use tropical for personal readings because the sidereal doesn't make any sense to me because those stars, they're like hundreds of light years away. You know, they're nowhere near us, whereas all the planets and everything are in our system very much closer to us, you know. And obviously the moon's the closest thing, and that moves all the oceans of the world around every day, you know, like trillions and trillions of gallons of water. I mean, it weighs what, who knows what that weighs, but the moon moves all that around, you know. So you can feel the effect that has on us. As you know, we're mostly made of water. But the energy coming from a star in Taurus, like Aldebaran, which is like 600 light years or something away, it's like, you know, and as I said, the stars of the constellations, they're actually nowhere near each other. You know, some of them are nearer and some of them are further away. Some of them are further away and nearer. But from our perspective, it looks like they're all close together and we can join the dots, you know, and make it look like a sheep or something, you know. But the seasonal energy of the tropical zodiac makes perfect sense. And you just flip it for down under, yeah.
All right, would anyone else like to ask a question? Charlie wrote 7 chakras in the body. I don't know if that was a joke or whether that was a question, Charlie.
No, that is true. There
No,
are.
it was, yeah, I was talking about, you were saying about when we were talking about the 10 days, and you were talking about the 7 planets that are like the physical ones, and then there are the other ones, and that just to me was just like, oh, that's the 7 chakra system, the 7 chakras of the body, and then the ones that are outside the body are the other planets. That's just what came to my mind.
Absolutely right. Yep. Because we know there are not only 7. There are 7 in our physical manifestation vessel for our soul, but as we know, there are others for higher above us. Yeah, absolutely. So again, that's another reason why we need to break out of the 7, you know? Yeah. And this is why I keep banging on about the Gregorian calendar and the 7-day week and all this stuff and the weekdays and the weekends, because it's a Kali Yuga thing, you know, and we just gotta get rid of it as far as I'm concerned.
Lay asked a question in the chat. She's not here anymore, but it might be something
Okay.
worth mentioning on the recording. It says
Yeah.
in Hawaiian culture and probably in the southern hemisphere, the constellations are different from the ones that you showed.
Yeah, they may have a different zodiac again, and different groups of stars they use. And then they would be using a sidereal zodiac. But I honestly don't know anything about that. But I am interested in this topic generally. So if she wants to send me a link or something for that next time she's with us, I'll check that out. Because the Chinese zodiac is different as well, and the Chinese one's based on the Jupiter cycle.
Yeah, I think the main
So
thing is just that the constellations you see in the sky are just a representation, and they're not.
yeah,
They haven't really got anything to do with it. It's just they've
no,
picked them for mythology or for.
yeah, and they picked them because they do. It's the alignment between those constellations and the tropical zodiac that tells us where we are in the great year cycle. For me, that's the single most important use of it, is to know that we're in the age of Pisces and Virgo, so we have to look at what does that mean.
Yeah,
And
and
as
I
it
also
keeps moving, yeah.
noticed in the names of the cycle. So as you go into winter, you're going to like for the Day of the Dead, for example, and then and that's obviously darkness. So those holidays or vacations were then created by people in our part of the world. Is that why they kind of like why Christmas is why Christmas is considered a dark time, where obviously, if you're in New Zealand and Australia, it won't be. Is
Yeah,
that
absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy because I lived in Melbourne for a year, and I mean, celebrating Christmas in Australia with jingle bells and snow and trees and all that shit is ridiculous. It's absolutely stupid, It's a Northern Hemisphere thing. I mean, if you want to celebrate something like a Christmas festival, in Australia, you should do it on June the 21st, which would be your equivalent of that would be your winter solstice down there. So yeah, just because Britain went and killed loads of Aborigines and invaded and took over Australia, doesn't mean people there still have to follow all this bullshit customs that they brought with them as well. I mean, if I was there now, I'd probably go and talk to the we shouldn't even call them Aborigines, the original people, and see what they do, see how they celebrate the natural cycles. That would make more sense, right? Than to impose a Northern Hemisphere Western thing onto it, Yeah.
It's a big part of down under, of decolonization, of getting rid of those festival names and the times they're celebrated. Yeah, and like Kath just put in the chat, we have our maramataka, which is a very detailed calendar by the moons
Okay.
for planting, for fishing, all very,
Yeah.
very well observed since hundreds of years. So we go back to that.
Yeah, and I think Rudolf Steiner did some stuff with planting with the moon cycle, right? And of course the moon
Biodynamic
is
calendar,
great. Yeah, biodynamics, yeah. The moon is great for
That-
that. But it's a monthly calendar, it's not a yearly calendar. You use it for the months. But you don't try and fit the months into the year because they don't fit, And then you get all confused and everything. So horses are courses,
When you
Yeah.
were describing the
Sorry, Helen. I just wanted to say I love the way you guys use all the like Maori or New Zealand indigenous terms and stuff a lot. I think that's really cool, and I'd love to learn some of that myself.
The language.
Yeah. Sorry, Helen. You had a question?
it is a question, but it's an observation that there's a question in, I think. When you were going through the cycles, you were using the Celtic wheel, but you never mentioned it as the Celtic wheel. So I was wondering, is that where that came from? Samhain, Imbolc, Bealtaine, Levant, So I'm curious why that was used, and is it from the Celtic wheel?
Yeah, well, the Celtic wheel and their names for those festivals is the, you know, I'm from Celtic roots, being a Cymraeg chap, but it's the Celtic version of of those festivals, you know.
Okay.
But
All right.
different places all around the world celebrate those times of the year because they're based on actual astronomical events.
And they would have
They
their
just have
own
different names
name.
for them, you know.
New Zealand, yeah.
Yeah, but the Celtic names I was listing, because people who still follow that eightfold year, as it's called, they still call them those names, you know. But I just call them.
Yeah, we use it regularly here.
Yeah, you know, I just call Samhain mid-Scorpio because that's what it is, you know. You can call it all sorts of things, but it's always going to be in the middle of Scorpio, you know. And the reason the Celts, well, the Druid calendar started its year at Samhain. So it started its year in the middle of autumn when it was going into the darkest. So it's the start of the winter of light. So the lowest point of the year. And you think, well, why do you want to start your year when you're going into all the cold, dark, miserable time, you know? But again, it's a Kali Yuga thing. And then they were following the moon more than the sun. And they're trying to follow the moon for a year cycle, which doesn't make any sense, right? And if you follow the moon, you start your month when you see the first crescent moon, new moon in the sky, you know? And of course, you see that at sunset. You can't see it any other time. So you start your month at sunset. So you start your day at sunset, you know, and you start your year at the sunset of the year as well.
There
So
are
you end up.
cultures that do follow that, isn't there? That their day starts in the evening.
Yeah, I mean,
in
in the Hebrew calendar, this is why they start their day at sunset, because they follow a lunar cycle as well. So, you know, if you're a Jew practicing Shabbat, your holy day is Saturday. Your Sabbath is Saturday because it's for Saturn, the Sabbath. But you start it on Friday night at sunset because their month starts when they see the crescent moon at sunset. So everything follows that. And, you know, that's another reason why I love the moon for what it's useful for, but I don't want to follow the moon for a year cycle because for me, it mucks everything up, you know, it doesn't work. And you end up
How very
celebrating
rude
going.
the moon for you, Litmus.
Well, you end
How
up
very dare the moon.
you know, you end up celebrating the year going into all the dark, cold days. You know, I don't want to do that. So that's something I don't agree with my Celtic ancestors.
Spring. When the buds start in spring, that's when it's gonna happen.
Yeah, you know, Aries equinox, that's the time. I've been doing that for 12 years now. And it's much
sorry.
Better.
I'm definitely, my day is done, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you so much. It was great.
Guys.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so
soon.
much. A wealth of information.
Genius,
Yeah,
Litmus. It's genius. Your app is amazing. You're
Thank
developing.
you. And I must say, for the record, I think in the last workshop on the Great Year, I was talking about the app, and I think I said, "Oh, this is an app I made" or something. And I mean, I didn't make it, okay? So I would like to put in the credits, actually. My good friend Prajna Pranab actually programmed it all, did all the amazing coding. He's a genius, that guy, and he's a dear friend. And I definitely want him to get the credit for that, all right? Because, I mean, I designed the calendar and everything. But he took my
all the ones and zeros.
Yeah, he's amazing. You know, he took my drawings and explanation and he coded it all and made that app. You know, it's amazing. I'm so lucky to have that. You know, it really brings it to life. So I'm glad you appreciate it, and thank you for the positive feedback. And I'll pass it on to Prajna as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Right. See you on the next one, is it? Ciao, ciao. Thanks for tuning in.